What does it take to become a college basketball legend? Well, first, you got to get buckets. I think that's pretty undisputed. I think second, you got to be competitive, have that fire to drive your teammates, right? Third, but certainly not least, you got to win. And you got to win a lot, right? Nobody embodied those qualities more.
ESPN's rude treatment of the greatest scorer in college basketball history is unacceptable. Caitlin Clark transformed women's college basketball in her freshman season, scoring nearly 4,000 points, setting records that will last for decades, and bringing national attention to a non-Power 5 school. However, Clark's name was not included in ESPN's list of the top 5 female collegiate athletes ever, not even as a token mention.
I hear from you guys at home, though, in YouTube. Give us a hit in the comments. Look, it's incredibly challenging to pick the 5, but obviously when you make these top 5 lists, somebody inevitably gets left off. Who do you have the biggest gripe with getting left?
In reality, Caitlin Clark is being penalized for being too good, too well-liked, or too white in a league dominated by black athletes. Why is she being hailed as the future Steph Curry by some legends more than anyone else? Cheryl Miller, who is on the list, stood up for Clark, calling out media bias and even using the word despise to describe how Clark is being treated. But this goes beyond snubs and statistics. Click like and make sure you're subscribed before we break down the ESPN snub, the Cheryl Miller mic drop, and the deeper factors that contributed to both Clark's rise and the resistance against her. How did Patrick Beverley end up calling her a gangster on live television, even when some act like she's a glitch in the Matrix? Deep dive. This isn't a joke. They don't want you to see this, yes. This actually happened. The Indiana Fever's breakout star, Caitlin Clark, was left off ESPN's latest all-time top 5 ranking. We'll talk about that list, but let's just say that legends and former players aren't happy. This isn't just about a ranking. Behind the snub is a larger media narrative about race, competition, and one unstoppable legend who refuses to stay silent. Cheryl Miller. Caitlin Clark didn't just set the all-time scoring record for both women's and men's college basketball. She rewrote NCAA history. And she did it without playing for a powerhouse like Tennessee or UConn, without a team full of 5-star recruits. So, why was Caitlin Clark overlooked when Time Magazine, Patrick Beverley, and countless others argue she's being resented simply for being exceptional despite leading Iowa to national relevance and the championship stage? Clark was left off ESPN's list of the top 5 greatest women's collegiate athletes of all time. Sure, Breanna Stewart's 4 Final Four MOPs and 4 national titles with UConn are hard to dispute. Candace Parker, Diana Taurasi. But how did Clark not crack the top 5 when others on the list are legends? ESPN placed her in the just-missed group alongside Brittany Griner. The top 5 included Tennessee and UConn greats like Maya Moore, as well as USC powerhouse Cheryl Miller, who won 2 NCAA championships and 3 Naismith Player of the Year awards in the 1980s. Kelsey Plum, Shamik Holtzclaw, Lynette Woodard. Fans were outraged, and analysts were baffled as the internet erupted. Was there something deeper going on, or was this just another case of ESPN's clickbait? One person, in particular, isn't staying quiet. Cheryl Miller. Strangely enough, despite making ESPN's top 5, Miller was shocked by how Caitlin Clark was treated.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of color. Yeah. I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. And people just having, and look, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason. And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. And I was
on the All the Smoke podcast, after calling Clark's critics giant dummies, Cheryl Miller made a statement that shocked everyone and, honestly, made me feel sorry for her. I can't imagine this young lady. I don't want to use the word hate, but despised, Miller said. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and be hated because of my color. That statement stopped the internet cold. Miller wasn't just defending Clark's stats. She was exposing something raw, something few people are willing to discuss in public. Since Caitlin Clark is white and the majority of the WNBA is black, conversations emerged about why she was receiving so much attention as her fame grew. Sheila Johnson, co-owner of the Washington Mystics, didn't mince words when speaking to CNN. Before Clark appeared on the cover of Time magazine, Johnson noted that she had seen many other equally exceptional black players who never received the same level of recognition. That doesn't take away from Clark's accomplishments. She absolutely deserved to be 2024's Athlete of the Year for her WNBA rookie season. She shattered records, leading all rookies in scoring and assists, averaging 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. She finished fourth in MVP voting and was selected as an All-Star. Yet, WNBA legends and insiders had mixed reactions. The pattern here is clear, isn't it? Sheryl Swoopes criticized Clark's Time cover, arguing that it should have featured the entire WNBA instead of just one player. Clark wasn't being questioned because she wasn't performing. Her success was breeding resentment, and race was undeniably part of the conversation. Even WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert stirred controversy when she compared Clark's impact to the legendary rivalry between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, noting how two rookies, one black, one white, emerged from a major college rivalry. The comparison struck a nerve. How did this rivalry even start? The Clark versus Angel Reese matchup was one of the most watched women's basketball games ever. The media ran with the story, a fiery, unapologetic black star from LSU versus a sharpshooting white girl from Iowa. The contrast was too perfect, but according to Cheryl Miller, that narrative was exaggerated. Miller had coached both Reese and Clark and saw them interact firsthand during the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game. She said their supposed feud was overblown and largely a media fabrication meant to generate clicks. Let's shift gears for a second. If you think this is just a WNBA issue, former NBA player Patrick Beverley would disagree. During a workout, Beverley found himself on one side of the gym, while Clark was on the other. He couldn't believe what he saw. "I'm looking at her shoot, and she's one of those shooters where it's like, damn, bro," Beverley said. "Why'd you throw that pass bad? Give me the ball to my chest." I'm like, oh, she's a gangster. For Beverley, a player known for his intensity, that's high praise. He doesn't throw compliments around lightly, but Clark earned his respect. She demanded precision, moved with purpose, and treated every rep like a playoff moment. She didn't just belong, she dominated. But the real question is this: why is a player who checks every box in performance, leadership, and popularity still facing so much scrutiny? This isn't just about Clark being white in a predominantly black league. It's about how narratives are built and who controls them. Cheryl Miller refuses to let Clark become a victim of a media system that thrives on division. Miller has been in Clark's shoes before. She knows what it feels like to be judged before being understood. Meanwhile, as debates rage on, Clark keeps getting buckets and cashing checks. How many people are willing to acknowledge that Caitlin Clark is adored by millions, respected by legends, dismissed by the establishment, and, depending on who you ask, possibly even despised? That's the real question. Not whether she belongs in the top 5. That debate has already been settled on the court. As Cheryl Miller put it, everyone has the opportunity to pull up their chair and take a seat. But what happens if the room isn't ready for you? Clark's ESPN snub isn't just about rankings. It's about how difficult it is for certain athletes to receive the recognition they deserve. Clark has nearly 4,000 career points and over 1,000 assists. Yet this situation highlights how media narratives can sometimes overshadow actual talent. The fact that Cheryl Miller is standing up for Clark speaks volumes. Success in sports isn't just about stats. It's also about how others perceive those accomplishments. More fans are starting to notice that certain players face more criticism than others, especially when they don't fit the expected mold. The so-called rivalry with Angel Reese? Overblown. Outdated narratives? Still dictating conversations. But one fact remains: the numbers don't lie. Caitlin Clark is doing things the game has never seen before. If she's still being overlooked, you have to ask, what's really going on? Is this about basketball, or is it about who gets to be the face of the sport? Patrick Beverley's respect proves that real talent transcends all narratives. So, did ESPN make a huge mistake, or are people overhyping Caitlin Clark? Is this just media bias, or is there something deeper? How do you think race impacts WNBA players' recognition? And here's the spicy one. Do rivalries like Clark versus Reese help or hurt women's basketball? What changes should be made in sports media to ensure every player gets the respect they deserve? If you enjoyed this in-depth discussion, make sure to hit like and subscribe so we can keep having honest conversations about the WNBA. This season is just getting started. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. See you all later.